Both of you had your first releases this year, and both incidentally co-produced. Produced by YRF. I just wanted to talk. Kanu, we've spoken about this on the phone when we had the first interview about the process of writing a script together. And given that you guys didn't know each other, like before you started working on the film. Could you just talk about the process of how do two creative people who have strong ideas about the world in general and maybe scripts and characters work together on a script?
I think it basically stems from the fact that there isn't a competition. That we have the same views on the strong ideas that we might have, and we are trying to contribute to a larger piece together. I think a big part of co-writing would be comfort, with each other. Two people who throw out or keep out all the egos or their selves outside of the room before they step in to write that morning. I think that's the basic ingredient, and then
it's purely in the first meeting whether you guys, the two people are going to work together. In first meeting you can tell you have a similar vision. If you might have different ideologies, but you aim to write a film that you believe in and that resonates with the world today. Right. So then you carry on from there.
Were you auditioning for co-writers when you were working on the script?
Not really, actually. Sharat was pretty much the only guy that I met. I had been speaking to Urmi because I keep bouncing stuff off her. I met her on Way Lucky, and we're really good friends now. So I had been whining like all writer directors, kuch nahi hai, need someone to bounce off, and she had met Sharat a year before. So I was in Screenwriters Lab, and the year before she had met him, and she was like, you have to meet him and you have to work with him. And I met Sharat, and as he's saying, I think by the second meeting we knew that we just had to work with each other because there was so much that was in common that it was just it was pretty much just the only meeting that I had.
Right. So could you just talk a bit about the actual process of how the script kind of worked, and would you kind of sit and write together, or would you do one draft and then he would work on the same scenes, and
it's way more complicated. Co-writing is way more complicated than how technically the American writing teams describe it, or they have it, because we don't have a formal structure to it, but somehow we found our own structure while we started working on it, which was basically that we started he had a thread of the story that we started working on, and we started talking about characters. He had all the three brothers already in mind when we talked about it. But when I remember when he was talking about Vikram, and somehow for 2-3 meetings I was seeing a way older Vikram. I was thinking maybe Vikram is in 50s or something, but after 2-3 meetings I realized that he's looking for Vikram who is say mid-30s, and then the younger boy Titli is really young. He's not. So then slowly we worked on. So then we started working on the story, and then we did a step outline.
Yeah, I think what happened was that for a long while we just kept talking.
How long was the process?
I think overall it took us we worked from beginning to end for about a year and 8 months, but it was staggered. It was not like constant work of a year and 8 months, but there were like big chunks, big pockets of working on the script. But I think the way it evolved was, as he was saying, it was free flowing. I didn't really know him in terms of process, so I think the first thing that we really early on decided was that he also said, I also said that we are not going to do that कि हम साथ में बैठ के एक dialogue तू बोल रहा है एक मैं बोल रहा हूँ हम scene लिख रहे हैं. That's not going to happen. So we are going to do it one by one or something like that. So I think where where it evolved was we said we're going to talk extensively. So I think almost out of this thing we're saying our first 5 months was just talking, where we had a rough line, or we were even before the line we just had characters. We were for days we were just talking about characters. He had a lot of problems with what already was there, so he was asking me questions, why this, why that, that was I was asking him questions back, so that it was helping us clarify a lot of what the base material was. I remember writing some voice pieces, like I wrote Titli's diary or something like that, which is where we discovered the dining table. It was random idea which he liked. He said this is really interesting. So it was a lot of talking and then moving on to the line. And
then in the step outline we fairly knew what the scenes were also. It just needed to be fleshed out after that. We had a clear picture from the start to the end. But there were, it was like when you write in lab, we realized that there are places which are muddled, and the climax part of it which we took a lot of time, and then the whole film changed.
I think that's where I think the line also kept on. I think that irritated him a little bit also, because I stopped for a while that no, we shouldn't go ahead, let's not write a draft, whereas he wanted to. I think that was our one major point of difference, because he also really likes to, that's where we are different, because he likes to just go in and write, and he's instinctive that way, and I'm more I'm more slightly more global, or I'll push it globally or whatever. So that we sort of dealt with between ourselves. But for a long while, at least on Titli, the process was that we were just talking line. Again, we had a one line of say 70 scenes, again going back and saying no, let's look at the line again, till both of us got so irritated, and at a point he said bas chhod de yaar. So then we went on to the first draft, and then as he's saying, then once we had those drafts, then we were assessing the drafts as a whole. Once we had the first draft, then it was really about acha ab ye film kya hai. Then it was just because the voices and the characters were refining themselves, but I think more than that, we were talking globally, where is this film, or how is it different, and we were really trying to grab it from the top after that.
Right.
Once we had the first draft.
Right. And obviously Sharat, because he was a director, he had obviously much more control over the final output. Like as a co-writer or as a writer, I think it's the same challenge of how do you detach yourself from the project that you've kind of co-conceived.
I had written for other directors as well, but I truly believe in one thing, that it's the director's vision. Sometimes you find a good director, sometimes you don't find a good director, but it's truly a director's film. Your job is to enhance what the director has in mind. In this case, it's the writer also, so it helps, and you submit yourself completely and give the script. After that, it's not yours anymore.
Right. And I mean, do you see yourselves writing again together sometime, or like is it the birth of a writing team?
I would love to write with him. I think he's a fantastic writer. I think we're a great team actually. I think we complement each other in many ways. I would love to write with him, even if it's for his film. It's another matter whether he wants me to write for him. But
like about writing my film, I'm not too open to working with anyone, because I don't like sharing that way. So and I'm very scared that I'll be judged. So that will stop me from working on it. And so I never worked with anyone.
But you were working on Dam Laga Ke Haisha while you were writing the script for Titli?
No, I had a draft with me up in the screen.
The draft on Dam he had even before.
No, but in terms of production, the film was already in production while you were writing?
Titli was made before.
Oh, Titli was made before.
He was already shot when Dam got commissioned.
Right.
And he is the one who gave the script to Manish.
Right. So I just wanted to talk a bit about getting produced by YRF. The kind of films that you typically see from YRF are not the kind of films that you guys have done. Clearly, I mean, Titli is far away from that. So again, a lucky coincidence maybe. Could you just talk a bit about that experience?
It's a matter of luck for me.
I think it's a mix of both. I think there is intention definitely from YRF's end to address another whole chunk of this emerging market. I think they're somewhere they do realize that not all of the big tickets, not all of the tent poles are going to work, and there is an evolving taste. And I think even his film or my film, both of them are similar in many ways. They necessitate themselves out of that condition, and plus obviously for any, I mean, we've been here both of us long enough now to realize that for any good film to get made in B-Town is a little bit of luck always, I think. So it's a mix of both, I think.
Right. But do you find a change in the tone or of people, of producers, of studios, of investors in Bombay now that you go? Is there an opening of minds in terms of the kind of stories that can be told and that can work? Or I'm assuming that there's a change happening, but like, what is your experience?
Who's pitching here? If it's a successful person pitching, that's different, and if an amateur is pitching, it's different.
The same story.
Same story. Trust me.
Yeah, I would take it. Look, it's hard. Let's just say that. I mean, it's a tough question, and I don't think it would be fair to discourage potential filmmakers wherever they are in their lives to just give a very blanket answer and say nahi ho raha hai aur ye wo. Look, it's hard. It's tough to make any film, whether it's a big film or it's a small film. It's a tough journey. You have to be prepared to get your ass kicked in whatever way, whether it's a fan or a dum or a titli. It's the same for every film. I think you need a mixture of some amount of luck and a lot of hard work to be able to get it through the system. But the system has always been there. It's here to stay. But clearly it's getting subverted in many ways. The instances are there. We can just hope that there are more cracks that open up and more pieces that sneak in. But it is tough, yes.
Right. So in terms of again funding, I'm taking that question ahead. With your next project, you are kind of looking at international co-production. Is that a recognition of the fact that the kind of projects that you are interested in are going to be difficult to kind of get funded completely in India?
Probably, I think I'm just headed towards exploring a kind of narrative which traditionally, see, there's a predisposition towards looking at a certain kind of story as art house, which I feel is not necessarily true. I would want to create a new niche here and try to push a new commercial, because I think there is a desperate need for a new commercial. I think what we are trying to attempt somewhere, even Sharat with our films is we are trying to do something that was done almost 40 years back in the US with a Scorsese or a Coppola, narratives that are slightly more complex, that respect the audiences a little bit more than some of the stuff that we are doing. I think there's a slight predisposition, there's an attitude towards those kind of narratives which creates a block. So what I'm trying to do with trying to explore this alternative is trying to take a little bit of the financial load off the film, so that it begins to make more sense to our market, and hopefully we can find some sort of a new amalgam here where we can work things out, where it's not that risky to push even a strong narrative-driven film which doesn't reinforce the same stereotypes.
Right, and in that process, I'm assuming that a place like Film Bazaar kind of helps immensely. Both of you've benefited from the Screenwriters Lab, and obviously Sharat now is mentor. So could you maybe talk a bit about the importance of having many more bazaars in India of this kind, where you kind of get to pitch to different kinds of investors and producers?
I think studios should have a day fixed or something like that. They should do something, a day in a month, where their content heads should just address, like people here, they should just address screen, and after that 10, 12, whatever, they should have pictures for.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea because clearly there is a lack of vision. Look at what's happening in Hollywood. A Sam Mendes is doing a Bond, a Nolan is doing a Batman. So clearly there's a little bit more vision being shown in the West towards commercial cinema, and that's why I stressed new commercial. I think we need to somehow push the boundaries of what we think works, and I think it's a great idea what he's saying, something like that. We need more platforms. We need a certain.
There are development monies, but I don't know what happens to those development monies apart from giving salaries for the content heads. So development money really means that you fix budgets for development of scripts, and you meet people, and whichever the consensus of the money bags, if they decide that these are the ideas we like, or we would like to spend some money and create scripts out of it. Yashraj is doing that right now. We were doing something, developing something. So
Right.
I'm sure that would help instead of just trying to buy off fully written scripts and then saying this doesn't work. It's better to get into that.
Right. So, just talking about the success of Dam Laga Ke Aisha, I'm sure it has helped you in terms of now maybe when you take a project or when you talk about a project that, like you yourself said, it is taken a bit more seriously and it is given a bit more weightage. Has that been your experience now?
I have not so far. I have not pitched anything, but yeah, with now that acknowledgement has come, so people are curious to know what I want. Not people who watch film, people who make films.
Right.
They are more curious to know what I intend to make now.
Right. So is there
Just slightly simpler than before, but with that there's baggage attached. That last time it was a comedy. Why don't you do another comedy? So it ties you also into the same.
Right. Is there I think I had the same question at Dharamshala also. Is there a community of fellow filmmakers? You obviously both of you work together. There are a lot of filmmakers typically in Versova, Ramnagar, that place in Bombay, but also a lot of people outside making a lot of films. In Mami this year in the India Gold India Story section, I think put together there were 30 odd films, feature plus documentary, and some amazing work happening across the country. So do you kind of keep a track of what's happening, who's doing what? Does that add to the kind of motivation or in terms of?
I already answered that, and
Yeah,
my answer is the same, which is that the issue is also that the simple answer is no. There is no community as yet, but I think also a factor of that is that all of us are first-time filmmakers mostly, and all of us have been traveling with the film,
Right.
or we've been spread thin over the year or last couple of years. Everybody is sort of just kicking into their sort of filmmaking life or whatever. So I think it'll take us some time for all of us to settle, but the funny thing is that we all keep bumping into each other while we are traveling. So I've only been able to catch up with, say, an Abhay or Chaitanya or Avinash when we've met at festivals. But I'm sure, and I hope sincerely, that we're able to join forces and just have even just an emotional sort of support for each other.
Right. Just coming back to the films rather. I felt that there was, some overarching similarities, and maybe that stems from the concerns or what the themes that kind of attract you. Both films were about families, were about this guy in a family who is, struggling to kind of, come to terms with what the family kind of expects of him. He is not the one who kind of decides, he's forcibly married, and this is the girl who kind of comes into his life, is much more, forceful, much more decisive, and kind of takes the thread ahead. The guy is, well, not in Titli so much, but in Dam Laga Ke Aisha is slightly more passive. Clearly, I think in both the places the female character is much more stronger. So I think the amazing thing with both the films is the accuracy or the honesty to the milieu. that you've managed to create. So could you guys just talk a bit about if you felt while you were making that, there are some similarities.
But that's one thing that you're saying is the core difference in the way we think. I think of which I really admire, and I stole from him, because I don't think of active characters. The film I'm writing right now, I'm again struggling with the same thing. I only think of passive characters. And there was another film that I have written that I wanted to make, but I'm not making it now. Well, the character in that film is not passive, so that doesn't excite me anymore. So and he thinks of active characters. So, and when my film was not getting made, I quickly did a 5-day draft in 5 days and made him active for the time being without believing in it. But okay, fine, he's active, he's doing something, and then I removed it before making it. But yeah, that's the core difference between the two of us.
But well, you kind of aware that there are these kind of similarities. I mean, obviously you spent quite some time together talking.
Not really, actually. If you ask me, no. It's only once I've seen them later on that, and we've talked about that, and we've laughed about that.
Yeah, he saw the rough cut and he said, "Oh, you also have a scooter ride.
And you also have a lane."
Yeah,
you also have that shot, that shot of the steady pull. So I think at least I realized it later that there are quite a few similarities.
And I had not seen a frame of his film, but there are still some visual similarities also.
Visual similarities also.
Yeah,
now
because
that you mentioned,
he hadn't seen the edit when he had gone to shoot. But I think tone difference ही इतना ज़्यादा था ना. The tone difference was that much that I don't think either of us paid attention to the fact that they were kind of similar, because while we were writing Tatli, he had put away Dum for a while. So I don't think either of us was actively. It's just instincts, maybe his instincts as a writer coming in and working.
No, sure. So I'm just like the last question. Obviously, in terms of the themes that kind of attract both of you. Could you just maybe talk a bit about it? Obviously, you are already working on the next project. You are also, I'm assuming, working on the next project. So, in terms of themes, so obviously the first film saw family and small town India. Again, maybe not so much patriarchy here, but patriarchy there, and kind of struggling to find your own voice in the characters. So, maybe too much of a question to ask, is it?
No, I can tell you the theme wise, what excites me right now, but not from right now. I've been trying to do that is hypocrisy that we have, and how we change with every situation, and our beliefs also change in different situations. So I'm really excited about those things, the value system, morality, the new middle class that we have, new money, all of that. That excites me to write a script on. Not just this one that I'm writing, but all films I try to address that.
I have no idea. I don't know. I think also on Titli, it was not like we set out with that theme that ye picture banayenge. वो बनाते बनाते it evolved and became a beast of its own. And as I'm, the initial days of staying with Agra, it's proving to be similar. It's becoming, and it's actually. The film has metamorphosed because it's been in development now for, in early development for a year. It's only now that active writing has started for the last 3 months. But the
and you're writing it alone this time?
No, I'm writing it with someone.
Okay.
But the idea, from the initial idea to 9 months later, is a completely different film. So I don't know. I think the joy for me is turning out to be in finding out what it is that I'm trying to do. So can't really talk about themes or obsessions right now. I think I'm fascinated by also the process of seeing what this is and seeing it change a little bit.
Right. Both of you guys, loved the first films, and I hope and I'm looking forward to seeing your future projects, and I hope you keep doing good work, and wish you success on your projects. Thanks.